In the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA096.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your
Boom,
country.
we are live and we are recording, and Taylor, you are dressed up.
We can't. Yeah, live and recording. I love that. I'm not dressed up. This is just a t-shirt, but I am so hot. We just got home and I should have changed because it's 91 in the house. So we were
So
away
hot.
for a couple days. So, oh my God. And then the poor house is just like the plants are like, we hate you so much and all the things.
Poor plants. Do you want to go ahead and introduce us and we can do a little bit of a check-in, human check-in?
Yes. Welcome, friends, to Doomed to Fail. We're the podcast that brings you history's most notorious disasters and epic failures twice a week. And I am Taylor, joined as always by Fars.
Always here, always ready to share horrible, horrible things.
I love
So
that.
y'all were in Nevada and you just got home.
Yes, it's Nevada, but yes, we were
What did I
visiting my
say?
mom. You said Nevada.
Nevada. Okay, fine.
Nevada. My sister who lives in Austin was visiting my mom, so we went and met up with them and spent a couple of nights there, and it was very fun. We didn't have anywhere to sleep really because my mom had like one guest room, but like another room that has a air mattress, but then like we can't all fit on a full air mattress. There's four of us, so last night ended up Thorns pushing me off the air mattress and ended up like just leaving that, and the kids were on that. Juan was on the floor, and I was sleeping on like a pool floaty.
It's kind of
It was
fun.
like, yeah, it was a lot, but
It's an
we're
eclectic,
good.
fun trip.
Yeah, the ride is long and boring because it's like through the desert, so it's kind of exhausting, you know.
It was like it's 6 hours from LA. So what is it for you guys? 9 hours?
It's four. No, it's four. It's
Wait, it's
closer.
4 hours from LA?
It's 4 hours from Joshua Tree.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah. All right,
Yeah,
yeah, not bad, not bad
yeah,
at all.
yeah. It's
Um,
cool.
Sweet. Well, who gets to go today first?
I think it's me.
Okay.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah, for
Let's
sure.
see. Our last episodes were like a little bit like, what day is it? Yes, you did Venezuela on Monday, then I did Poggio Bracciolini on Wednesday. That's my
It's
turn.
probably not the worst thing in the world because I'm kind of second doubting my topic. So I actually started on two outlines because I was interested in one thing, and then I heard something else. I was like, that sounds cool. I'm gonna go look into that. And now I have like, well, I have one complete outline that I'm like not in love with, and then a second half complete outline that I kind of really like.
Nice.
So yes, we'll do yours first, then give me some time to fit mine up.
Yeah. No, that's good. Cool. Cool. Okay, well, I am ready. Let me open up my thing. So I'm going to talk about, oh, first, we should talk about the Olympics and check in.
Yes, sorry,
So,
yeah, we gotta do our medal count.
have you watched anything recently?
I mean, I don't know what I'm watching exactly. I saw running, I saw swimming, I saw gymnastics, but I don't know what they're individual. Like, I don't know, was it a 100 meter, 10? I don't know what I watched exactly, but I saw a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
So here's the news that I think is cool. I mean, there's a lot of it. There's so many sports. It's actually wild. I watched like BMXing yesterday. I watched dressage. It is so weird. I don't understand.
That's the horse one, right?
Yes, but like all you're doing is making your horse tiptoe. I don't get it.
Yeah, like what is the sporty part of that?
Do you not get it? The horse tiptoes around? I don't know. Tomorrow there is the horse jumping, which I feel like is harder, but I don't know. Like,
Also
why
very
is that a
dangerous.
sport?
I did see the
Yeah.
Turkish guy. The Turkish guy's
Yeah.
that's taking everyone by storm. I've seen that.
Yeah. He was shooting, and then Noah Lyles just won the men's 100 meter by his head.
Yep, I
He's
saw
an
that too.
American. And then Shikari got um silver. And then Simone Biles got gold in everything she did, and it was amazing. So all of that
Does
was
she have the
good.
most golds in history or something?
I don't know, it's a good question because there's also Katie Ledecky is killing it. So we are winning as Americans. We have 19 gold medals, tied with China. They also have 19 gold medals, 26 silvers, 26 bronzes for a total of 71. Oh, I watched the nerdy guy everyone likes get the bronze in the pommel horse, and the one of our big guys won his third gold medal for shot put, and that was fun to watch because it was raining and like it. They throw that thing so fucking far. It's 16 pounds, and they throw it so far. It's pretty amazing.
No, Michael
So,
Phelps. Michael Phelps is by far the leader still with 28 total gold medals.
oh wow, there's KatieLedecky's third. There's Larissa Larissa Latnina from the Soviet Union from gymnastics who has 18 medals. Wow, Michael Phelps has 23 gold medals.
Yeah.
That is wild.
Yeah, so
Just
then you got Katie
wild.
Ledecky at number 5, and that's the last American until you get to number 15, Jenny Thompson.
Yeah. Swimming. No, where's Mark Spitz is number 5. What list are you looking at?
Katie Ledecky's number 5.
Katie Ledecky is number 3. We're looking at different lists.
Yeah, we're looking at different lists. I have Michael Phelps as number 1, Larissa Latina Nina
Yeah. Yeah.
number 2, Merit Bjorgen at number 3. N- Oh, you know
No.
what? It's because yeah, you're right. You're right. These people are tied. I'm reading them in sequential order, but they're actually tied. So you're right.
No, and I think Katie Ledecky has 9. I think this is like I updated lists I'm reading on
Yep.
Wikipedia.
Yep.
All right. Anyway, very exciting. Love to see it. I'm excited for breakdancing. It starts later this week. I don't really understand it. I watched some judo. I don't understand at all what's going on in judo. They can pull each other's clothes,
I guess so. There's a
apparently.
lot of throwing. I know that much.
Yeah. So it was like, and they did this thing where they like had looked like a slot machine wheel, like the turning, not like a whatever, but it like turned and then it like picked the weight class and those guys went. I don't know like how that works, but it like landed on the 90 kilograms. So it was like these two huge dudes
It's kind
hugging
of
and
fun.
pulling each other's clothes. So that was fun. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So far so fun. I'm enjoying it. We watched Katie Ledecky win the um what was it, 1,000 meter or whatever? No, it couldn't have been. She just went back and forth so many freaking times in the
I
pool.
know.
I'm so tired.
I don't know. Like they're all like various meter distance
But then
things. And
at
it's like
the
I don't know
the
which is which.
right before the last lap or whatever, they there's a bunch of dudes and their job was to like ring a bell next to their heads, which I think was pretty fun. Like they like were like walk up to the edge of the pool and like ring a bell to let them know that they're on their last lap. But I feel like they would know anyway because they're probably counting, but who knows what they're thinking when they're doing it. They're just like, I hope I don't die because I've been swimming like a crazy person.
I do still love the meme going around that's saying like please let a normal person do these
I
sports so
know.
we know how good they are because it's so hard to know. I mean, okay, gymnastics is not that hard to know. Like
I mean, it looks easy, which is so wild because you're like, how what is even happening,
gymnastics is the one that like really makes me like freak out when I watch it because the amount of forces that are acting on their bodies is just like every time she lands, I'm like, please don't break a leg.
Me too. I'm like, I can't believe it. Like my wrists hurt from like crocheting this weekend. Like, and I'm not doing that. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Breaking news,
Yeah.
we're not Olympic athletes.
No. No, I like the other ones. There's some other memes that are like this. I'm sorry to say I didn't make it. And it's like people doing like the parallel bars and they're just like falling off and like being really funny or being like I could do like 2 flips on it, which is still very impressive,
Oh
but it's
yeah.
like not even close,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. So
So
far,
that's
cozy.
our update for the Olympics as of right now, which is Sunday. But yeah, we'll get more to you later on this week.
Yes, we'll have more. I was like, do they stop for the weekend? And I was like, no, they don't. What am I talking
No,
about?
no,
Like,
they
of course
keep
it just
going.
keeps going.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get to watch it. And I also find it very accessible this this
I
time. I
did
feel like
too.
it's easy to watch on Peacock and like they do it late enough at night that even in my time zone I can still watch some stuff live.
Yep. Same.
So
I've been watching on YouTube TV. They have all the sports and there's
yeah.
one view of it where you can see four of them going at the
I
same time.
know.
And I
I
was
did
like,
that yesterday at my mom's. It was
I was like,
cool.
this is too confusing. This is too much going on. I can't do it.
Remember when picture-in-picture TVs were all the rage?
Oh yeah. Oh,
People
yeah.
were like, oh, I want to watch my football game, but also know what's going on Friends.
Now
That's
look
the
at
only
us. We have
example.
multiple TVs.
I know. Cool. Okay. Thank you for chatting that out. I feel a little bit more awake. Um, I'm going to talk about a disaster that happened in Boston in 1919. Can you think of anything?
Molasses.
Yes, indeed. It was the Great Molasses Flood of 1919. And so to talk about this, I read a book called Dark Tide, The Great Boston Molasses Flood of 1919 by Stephen Puelo. And I also just read one article that was also there and like looked at Wikipedia and stuff. But obviously you've heard of this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's very
Um,
few like even remotely popular horrible human events that I don't
I
know.
have not heard of.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's fair. So the book really gave it a lot of context, which we love for all the stuff that was going on in like 1919, like the post World War One stuff. So first things first, let's talk about molasses. Like, can you smell molasses when I say that
Oh
word? Do you
yeah.
know what molasses is?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, if anyone doesn't know, it smells like it's like a gingerbready flavor, like they use it in gingerbread. It's like kind of sweet, but I feel like it's like a harsh sweet, and it tastes kind of
Kind of
burnt.
gross.
Yeah.
It's a
So
little
I've used
like if you were to have like a spoonful of molasses, I think I would vomit.
Yeah, I don't think I could do that. I have some molasses in the fridge because I used it for something and I used it I think you use it in like gumbo. And you can add it to white sugar to make brown sugar. So I think this is the last time I used it is I added it to white sugar to make brown sugar. But it adds to things that taste a little bit special because of it. And in 1919, the Purity Distilling Company, which was owned by the United States Industrial Alcohol Company, was very invested in molasses, and I'll tell you why. Um, so neither of those companies are around anymore, but it was a big deal. Like during, 100 years ago, it was important. So just to talk about how molasses is made. So it's made from sugar. So you can harvest sugar cane or sugar beets, and then you crush it and get out the juice. And the juice has sugar and like other things. Then you boil it to concentrate the sugar. And during the boiling, it starts to get dark, and the dark syrup is the molasses. And then there's like you can do it 3 times. Like the third boiling is like the very, very dark, so it's like lighter. There's like different like levels of molassesy-ness, you know?
Yeah. It's like olive oil, like virgin, extra virgin, so on.
Yeah, yeah. So I made a thing in, I think it was, oh, I was making Kung Pao chicken or Kung Pao something. You know how Kung Pao tastes kind of burnt?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like it's like spicy but kind of burnt. So I had to make something called browning, which was like I took a half a cup of sugar and a half a cup of water and I boiled the shit out of it until it turned into it's like a very dark brown liquid and it's kind of like molasses. And I have it in my fridge. Like it worked, but it took a long time. And it was like it's crazy how and like this it's also like on the way there's caramel because you can also boil sugar and that's caramel, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, it's funny when you just mentioned that I was going through this like rabbit hole on Instagram of like Chinese food, and what I thought of when you said that was Peking duck, the sauce that comes with it. It's like this like
Hmm.
molassesy blackish kind of sweet thing. Usually, if you have you
Yeah.
ever had Peking duck?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
know what you're
okay,
talking
yeah.
about. Yeah.
So
Yeah, totally. Um, so yeah, so it just gets darker and darker like as you boil it and then it like stays dark and that's essentially how they make like molasses and other things. You can also something I saw also on Instagram that I want to try. If you take like a can of condensed milk and put it in the like keep it in the can and put it in like a pressure cooker or a um crock pot, it'll turn into like caramel, which is wild.
really
And then like in the can. Yeah. Maybe not pressure cooker, that might explode, but definitely a slow cooker.
weird.
That'd
Okay, yeah,
be fun.
I wonder why.
Um, so it's very, very sticky. It's very, very thick. The thickness depends on, obviously on the temperature. So in 1919 and probably today, or as always, a lot of sugar is grown in the Caribbean, and the sugar would be turned into molasses down there, and they would put it on a ship and bring it up north to be used for different things. And so I look a word that like some words you're like I cannot never remember what they mean, like secular and non-secular. I always get wrong, and viscous and non-viscous. So it's more viscous when it's cold, so it's like less runny. is what I'm pretty sure that means. So
That's yeah,
if it's
okay.
cold, it's thicker, and if it's hot, it gets more thinner,
It's
I guess.
confusing because I thought it was more in gradients, like high
Mm.
viscosity versus low viscosity, not like a null indicator of is viscous, is not viscous, you know?
No, yeah, I think it's a scale too. Yeah,
Okay.
like it's more viscous when it's cold.
I love when we figure stuff out like as we're recording.
I'm like, this word for some reason is not a word that is, it's very confusing to me. But so in the Caribbean, obviously it is warm. So as the molasses is like on these big boats going north, it gets colder and that changes the viscosity as it's going up. So just keep that in mind.
Sure.
Um, so in the molasses that's being sent to Boston in 1919 is not for eating. You won't die if you eat it, and we'll talk. Some people do eat it, and they're fine. But it's meant for to become ethanol alcohol because they use that in making weapons because it's just after World War One. And so the production is kind of like winding down on like being huge like industrial producers of weapons like we were during World War One and like even like before we were obviously like sending weapons to Europe and then we had to bring our own. But the way it works is you ferment the molasses to produce ethanol, and then you used industrial alcohol, and you probably still do, in things like TNT. So it also can be in like other chemicals as well. So I looked up how that works. So they like ferment the sugar, the molasses with yeast, and then it can be distilled and concentrated. And they do it and they kind of turn it into nitroglycerin. And that is the thing that can become, what does it say? So ethanol in weapons, its role creates nitroglycerin, which is an explosive compound. So that's what they put into TNT. It becomes like a solvent in the purification process while they're making TNT. So that's technically what they use it for. So it's used to create explosives.
I'll admit that even though you explained it, I don't actually understand how any of that
I
stuff
mean, I couldn't
works.
like do it if you gave me
Right,
molasses. I couldn't
exactly.
like
It's like,
create
oh, so
TNT.
the nitroglycerin, I just need to obtain the nitroglycerin. Like, what do I do with it?
Um, I think also, I guess it also can you be used to um, dilute some of the other chemicals to make them a little bit safer while you're making these explosives or something. So it's very important, and that's why that they're very invested in bringing a shit ton of it into the United States. So they bring it in the boat up to Boston, they hold it in the tank, which I'll talk about. And there's a pipe that goes to Cambridge and that's where they're like making the weapons and the TNT and such. So it's not explosive in its own, but you can probably catch it on fire like you can with any alcohol, right? But it's not like
I
explosive
mean,
like
it
it
it,
becomes
it could
TNT.
probably it probably also generates gas that
Yeah,
like a that if you
yeah,
contain it would blow, but
yeah, totally. Um, it also can be used to make rum, like additionally to this. Like for the most part, they were using it up until 1919 to make explosives and weapons. But later, and especially at this time, so by the time that are talking, we're in 1919, we are a few months away from Prohibition going into law. So they're making as much rum as possible because there were things where like you could sell all that you had in some cases, things like that. So they still
I
have
would
it.
have been just like a madman. I would have cashed in my
That's what
401k.
that's what they were doing. They were like mad people making this rum. So um the so we are in the early 1900s. It is 1918 when World War One ends in November. One quote from historian Francis Russell that was in the book that I read. Um, Part of it was everyone had like the bright promise of a future with the memory of a pre-war golden past that never existed, which I like to talk about all the time, that there is no mythical past, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
So people were feeling that. So it's almost prohibition. Women just got the right to vote. All those things are happening. And now we are in Boston. Have you been to Boston?
Actually, no.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, of
surprised.
all the places I've never been to Boston.
Um, I've been there a couple times. It's nice. It's very beautiful. Oh, there's a ton of like old buildings and stuff, obviously.
I went to an
There's like
Irish
a
pub last night.
Oh, you did? Oh, fun. That's pretty much Boston.
Oh, there you go. Then
It's the
I
same
then
thing.
I just consider me having gone.
Yeah. Yeah. But they it's also just as important. It's really fucking cold in Boston in the winter. Like the coldest I've ever been has been in Boston, so it's freezing. Um, it's a port city, so that also makes it cold because it's like on the water. And we're in the north end of Boston. So another thing, and this is basically Boston is Irish versus Italian, and like that's their main thing. Like their main
Oh yeah,
personality is
we've
Irish
all
versus
seen The
Italian.
Departed.
Yeah. So this is, this has been happening forever. As people came in and then, in the time when white people hated other white people for being immigrants and now they can't tell each other apart. So now we hate other people for being immigrants. You
Great.
know,
I can't wait
what
till
we
I'm considered white. It's gonna be so fun.
I know. So the North End is a very
You're like, I
Italian
know.
neighbor.
Trust me. I know
I
how great it is
mean,
being white.
um, yeah, it's fine. It's a little embarrassing, but it's fine. Um, so we're in the north end of Boston, which is a very poor neighborhood, and it's very Italian. So there's also like Southern Italians are more discriminated against than other types of Italians. So a lot of that is happening. There's a lot of racism, and also the Italian people in this time are not like they are like building neighborhoods, and a lot of immigrants are, where you don't ever have to learn English. You just live with
Yeah.
the people from the home country forever. So a lot of people aren't getting their citizenships, even though they are like owning businesses and like contributing and paying taxes and all the things, but they're not getting their citizenships. They're not voting. They're not running for office, so they don't really have a lot of say in what's going on. So the neighborhood remains kind of like industrial, and people live there, but it's not the best. Does
Right.
that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So. They're also just trying to survive. It's a rough time to be alive, and it's freezing. So the molasses comes from the ships from the Caribbean to Boston, and they decide they need a tank, and they need to build a tank to be able to, to house it when it gets off the ship before they send it to Cambridge for whatever further processing. So the guy who's in charge of making the tank, this was like his make or break thing for his job. So it was like, if you do this successfully, you're going to get a promotion. It's going to be great. So he had like a lot on the line for making it. It took a while and it was hard, like everything is. He had to get permits. He had to like get the right things. He used he had like he had to, like, get the steel from a steel company. The steel that was used was 10% less strong than it needed to be. But I feel like that happens all the time. And I think like when you talked about other engineering disasters, like I think we talked about how like they had to redo the Brooklyn Bridge because the um metal like rope wasn't good enough.
Yeah,
Things
I've
like
heard
that.
that with other things that were going on
Yeah.
around that time. I heard that with the Titanic, for example, that part of
Hmm.
the problem was that the steel being used was would get very brittle in cold
Hmm.
water. I think I think I actually went into like a deeper dive in this that like apparently the purity level has to be like very, very tightly controlled. Like there's very slim margins on purity
Hmm.
for when steel is actually like usable and useful
Oh,
versus like
interesting.
in this
Right.
situation where it like is brittle under certain
Yeah.
situations.
And it's also like you said with the cold, like such widely different temperatures, and like steel's going to expand and contract in some way, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
I assume.
100%.
Um, so it should have been fine. It was built to withstand three times the pressure of what was going to be inside of it, but like in the end, like that wasn't enough. But just that's it. So the tank is huge. Like in my head, I had like a picture of a barrel. It's not a barrel. It is a gigantic tank. It is made of steel. It has like a rounded dome at the top. It holds 2.3 million gallons of molasses. So that's a shit ton. And people live all around it. So you can live like in the shadow of this gigantic tank. And also the elevated train goes like right next to it. So you can see that as well. So it's like absolutely huge. Um, it also is leaking constantly, like right from the start when it is built. So children in the neighborhood will like go get molasses from the bottom of it and bring it home, and they'll like use it in their cooking because it's like literally covered in molasses and constantly leaking.
Yeah, I mean, it's the early days. Like they probably didn't have tolerance levels that we have right now.
Well, there are it's not the only molasses tank in the world, and others don't leak as much as this one.
Oh, this is unique. This is a uniquely poorly crafted.
Exactly.
Got
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So like it's not even the biggest one, it just isn't that great. And so there's people who will testify later that like they saw when they were putting it together that the rivets weren't matching up, but they were like putting in like another nail to like make it match, but that's like not good.
Yeah.
They need to match. Um, they're caulking it. There's a guy whose job is to caulk it, and this is so awful because I mean it's his job. Whatever. It was like he had like a company, but he did it by himself in the winter. He would like, hang off the side of it and like try to fix it. At one point, they painted it brown, so you couldn't really tell that there was molasses coming out of it.
That's smart. I would see that's the kind of thing I would do.
Yeah.
I had the problem,
Um,
not solve it.
exactly. It also doesn't have very good security around it, which we'll talk about that in a second. But there's like the police like walk around at night on their like police beat, but it doesn't have like its own security really. And that'll be important in a second. So it looms over the neighborhood. And there's a lot of people that like these like small personal stories that were in Dark Tide that I definitely recommend reading to hear more about them. But there's a man who owns a bar called the Pen and Pencil Club, and it's about to be fucked because of Prohibition. But he's like saving a lot of money, but he lives like literally in the shadow of it. There's an Italian family with cute little kids who are always hanging around it. So there's people who like it's just like a part of their lives. It's just like in their neighborhood, and it's huge, and it probably smells crazy in that neighborhood.
Why not good? I mean, again, I'm not attracted to molasses. Like I wouldn't be
Yeah.
happy smelling that every day.
Like I lived in downtown New York for a couple of years when the fish market was still down there. And like if you bought something at like the Gap that was at like the mall next to it and took it home, it would smell like fish. You didn't notice when you were there,
Oh, gross.
but when you got home, you were like, oh no, this thing I bought was like fish. It was so gross. So I'm sure everything like they probably like got used to it and then they would leave and people would be like, oh my God, you smell like molasses.
I'd be okay living next to a pizza factory though. That'd be kind of fun.
I do like when you drive by like a bakery in the morning.
Ooh.
That's always so nice. Yeah. I love that. So another thing that's happening, again, to talk about turbulent times, is there are bombings all over America by anarchists. I don't, and like, there's probably a whole other bunch of stories in this, but they bomb the DuPont powder mill in Delaware. They bomb a steel factory, like, and more. It was actually a whole thing called the 1919 United States Anarchist Bombings, and there are like 60 of them, and they were sent through the mail. Nobody died, but one person like they sent it to like senators and whatever. It was like a whole thing. Um, and maybe I'll into it later as like its own episode. But one maid of like a senator picked up the box and opened it, and her hands got blown off,
Jeez.
which is like the fucking worst.
I mean,
So
that
I
happened
feel
to a
so bad.
guy with the Unabomber.
Yeah, I remember. So that was happening too. So just like there's also that, and they're going to use that after it's over to be like maybe it was an anarchist who did this.
Of
So
course.
that's like happening as well. So the tank is leaky and weird. There is a man named Isaac Gonzalez who works there, and Isaac is, bless his heart, he was so nervous. He was like, I don't like this. I don't like it. It leaks, it groans, and they're like, it's just some molasses, like, settling and probably like, bugs and stuff, like whatever, and he's like, he would wake up in the middle of the night and go sleep next to it because he was so worried about it. And it was built like, I think it was built in like 1915. So for a couple of years, it affected Isaac's mental health so much that he quit to go to World War One because he was like,
Jeez.
that sounds more pleasant than being so fucking nervous about this tank. And he actually didn't end up going. He enlisted like that in like the beginning of 1918, and then but the war was over by the time that he was done. But he was just like he would like leave his house and his boss was like, you have to calm down. And he was like, I can't, like I know something bad's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So he just like had it in his head. So it is January 15th, 1919. The man who owns the Pencil Club, he is home and he's asleep because he sleeps during the day, obviously, because he owns a bar and he's up all night. He just saved $4,000 to move his family out of the neighborhood, and they're like about to move. Um, there's kids that are around the bottom of the tank, and they're collecting firewood and molasses. So there's people around it. Have you seen that like clip from the? Have you watched The Bear?
No.
I have not either because it seems very stressful. But the woman in the bear who won the Emmy, Io Eddiebury, she mentioned that she like is from Boston on like a maybe on like Jimmy Kimmel or something, and she was saying how she cries talking about the Boston molasses flood to people. And I think this is probably what she cries about because there are two children who are about to die, Maria DeStasio and Pasquale Iantosa. Pasquale, like a little Italian Pasquale. And they find Pasquale because he was wearing two sweaters because his mom made him wear two sweaters. And his first sweater is so covered in molasses, and they can lift it up and find the second one when they find his
Oh,
body. So it's so sad. So it's noon. The tank is full. It just got filled up, and it's not the first time it's been full, but it's full. The temperature is changing, and it changes pretty rapidly on this day. So it had been freezing, and then the temperature shot up like 40 degrees, which like happens, but that might have been a part of it. So it's getting warmer. The new molasses is mixing with the frozen molasses that was at the bottom, and at 12:30 p.m., the tank explodes. And it doesn't like leak a little bit, it fucking explodes. It sounds to people like a train crashing, or they think that like a bomb has gone off. The rivets, like the screws, shoot out like bullets across the town. The metal of the tank is in shards, and the roof kind of like falls straight down on the wave and just falls down. So the roof doesn't really go anywhere, it just goes down, but the rest of it just like explodes into shards of now flying metal
why was it so
pieces.
explosive? Was it the gas that just
I
built up?
think so. I think so. I think it's the gas and the pressure and like the change in the pressure coupled with like just how much pressure is on it for so long. I think it was
Yeah,
like bound to happen, you know? But the molasses itself comes in a massive fucking wave. It's 25 feet high and 130 feet wide at 35 miles per hour.
that
Just
is so
like
scary.
a tsunami of sticky horror coming at you. And it's dark, you know?
Dude,
Just
it's
like,
so viscous. Or like high viscous that I imagine like you couldn't probably drown in it either. It would just block your airways. It probably isn't, it's
yeah,
too thick to even go down your lungs.
yeah, yeah. You like suffocate before you
Ugh.
like drown, you know? So it destroys buildings. There was a woman who was on her patio hanging up her laundry and she dies like right away. It kills people and horses. So there's also animals that are stuck in this as
That's the
well.
sad part.
Yeah, and the kids hopefully died quickly, but the two little kids died. The pencil and pen guy who owned the bar, his house is destroyed. His mom dies. He is like sleeping when it happens, so he's like super confused and like ends up like laying on a door and like finding his sister. And his brother was mentally challenged, and he will have to go to an asylum, and he's not going to live very much longer because he just like can't handle it. He was like a 35-year-old man with like the mind of like a 7-year-old, and it was just too much for him. He like, couldn't understand what was going on. Um, but there is a firehouse that's next to the tank, and it gets totally destroyed. Like the second floor falls into the first floor, and there's some firemen who are underneath the first floor, and the molasses is rising, and one of them finds a way to like kind of kick out a window so it starts to go away, but they're there for hours. And while they're there, another fireman is stuck above them on the second floor, also covered in molasses, and he's trapped under a pool table and like cannot get out, and the molasses is rising and rising, and they hear him screaming, and they're like, George, hang on. And he goes, it's over. There goes old George. And then he dies.
It's not a bad way to go.
So, um, there's also, while this is happening, there's the sound of shooting because cops are killing the horses,
I
because they're
mean,
stuck.
that's right. That's probably,
Yeah,
I mean, yeah.
yeah. So it is everywhere now. It has destroyed a ton of things, and it is sticky and it's smelly, and it's like the temperature is weird. Like all these weird things are happening. 21 people die and 150 people are injured. So, the people who die, they are either like smashed against buildings from the initial wave, or they drown in the molasses. And drown, I
Um,
mean, is they suffocate.
I was gonna say, given how high it is and how heavy it is, I imagine if like it landed on you, the weight might be enough to kill you.
Yeah, and you can't like swim out of it.
Yeah, it's really
you know,
bad.
and it's gonna be like pulling you down. And also like in 1919, also, I don't know, I feel like I didn't write this down, but I feel like you also are wearing a lot of clothes, you know?
Yeah, like that one poor
Like,
kid,
yeah, like that kid, all the sweaters and oh my
Pasquale.
God. So sad. Um, First responders, they have to like pull molasses out of people's mouths to get them to breathe, like you were saying, you know? So like you pull molasses out of their mouths, you're wiping molasses off their eyes. You can't recognize anyone, like you can't recognize any of the bodies because they're covered like head to toe in molasses. Just like it's so sticky and terrible. Um, it breaks the elevated rail line, and luckily the conductor of a train is able to stop in time, and he gets out and runs across the track to stop the next train from coming. So he definitely saved a lot of people by doing that. Because the elevated train got destroyed. Um, I have a quote from a man named Stephen Puelo who was there. He says, quote, "Molasses, waist deep, covered the street and swirled and bubbled about the wreckage. Here and there struggled a form. Whether it was animal or human being, it was impossible to tell. Only an upheaval, a thrashing about in the sticky mass showed there was any life. Horses died like so many flies on sticky fly paper. The more they struggled, the deeper in the mess they were ensnared. Human beings, men and women, suffered likewise," which is
Yikes.
just a terrible fucking way to go. The USS Nantucket was a ship on the harbor. It had 100 cadets that like ran out, got on shore really fast to come and help people. They're also covered in molasses. They're trying to help people. They find the last body 4 months later, like in the bay. He was like trapped under something. Um, so after it's over, obviously there's going to be a trial because someone's going to have to figure out what happened and someone's going to be to blame. There's a man named Hugh Ogden. He is the auditor who will make the final call like, after the trial. So he's going to decide like the settlement and try to work. I think he's like kind of the lawyer for the people, but he's an important person in this. USIA, the United States Industrial Alcohol, tried to say that it was an anarchist who bombed it because like that was happening. It wasn't not happening. So they
Yeah.
were like probably someone who had a bomb. But then people were like, and this kind of like it reminded me a little bit of Lizzie Borden, where they're like, it's the middle of the fucking day. You think we wouldn't notice someone? You know?
Right. Right.
Like that doesn't make any sense. Like that's not how like if an anarchist like went and like climbed the fence, like there wasn't a ton of security, but actually there was a guy who was working there and he left early that day because it was like a nice day and he went shopping with his wife. So he would have died for sure. But still, like there's no way someone could have got up there with a bomb or like dropped it in or whatever. And so it ended up being because, it was just made very poorly. The man who made it wasn't an engineer. They didn't do any testing to test its strength. They filled it with 6 inches of water and they were like, it's fine.
That's dumb.
And you're like, that is very different from like, tens of hundreds, like hundreds of
Yeah.
feet of molasses. And it took a couple years, like in trial, to like go back and forth. But they ended up getting about $7,000 per person. And that's about 125K in today's money. And like per death, and then they also got some money for injuries. Like a lot of people could never work again, because they were just like so physically injured. There was one man who was so traumatized, his hair turned white and he could never stand up straight again because it like broke his spine. So like
Jeez.
a lot of people had like, pain and suffering forever. And also just like lots of PTSD, with these folks couldn't sleep anymore or, would like hear a sound and get scared. I'm sure there's like smells and things that like you'll never forget. Like I'll never forget the way 9/11 smelled. It smelled like burning people in paper, you know? Like you know what those things smell like. So I'm sure there was like tons of that. And I don't smell that often, but something that like molasses, it's like a household good,
You can still smell 9/11.
Yeah, I mean, like, well, when I smell that smell, I know exactly what it is. And in like Chinatown and the subway, it kind of smell like that too. Like, it's forever, just like a weird burning. If I smelled it again, I would know it right away.
Hopefully
You
you
know,
don't have to smell
hopefully
burning
never smell it again.
humans. Yeah.
Yeah, but you like it's like the whole thing, and you just knew what it smelled like. Um, and that is it. Yeah, they paid the damages out in 1925. That was it, and it was just because it was made really poorly. Also, Hammond Ironworks, they're the ones who brought in the steel just to name them. And Isaac Gonzalez, the guy who was scared, poor guy, he did he did get a threat in like on the phone that someone was going to bomb it. And also in another weird thing, USIA the United States Industrial Alcohol Company, they lost two ships later, like in between the trial and the flood, that were on their way um from the Caribbean, like back up. Like they like just lost them at sea, which just feels like really weird and suspicious. Like they were also doing weird things to maybe like get rid of their investment because you couldn't use it for as many things as you could 5 years before. 5 years before everybody was drinking booze and building weapons, and now they're not doing that anymore. So, they like had to try to figure it out, but also they had to pay the settlement.
I like how I mentioned to you over the weekend that the older I get, the more I believe in conspiracies.
Yeah.
And you're also going that direction. Is it just age? Is it just the older you get, the more you're like just suspicious about things?
Yeah, like I've seen some shit. I don't trust you people.
When you say FARS, you formed an F.
No, I don't know, folks. I don't know what I was gonna say, but
Folks, yeah.
I don't trust anyone. Um, yeah. What conspiracy theory were you talking about this weekend?
No, you said something about like a your brother or somebody had a conspiracy theory, and what were we talking
I
about?
can't remember what it was. Whatever. Anyway. Yeah, that's it. Terrible story. Real gross. Real sad. Real sticky.
And the thing is, the feeling I hate the most is when a part of my body is sticky. Like when my
Yeah.
hands are sticky, like when coffee, like sweetened coffee creamer gets on something, it's like, oh God, it drives me nuts. I gotta get it off me
Yeah.
immediately.
No, and like imagine like I mean, you would never get that out of your clothes, and
Yeah.
like, it would like dry, sticky, like, yeah, like
Ugh.
I hate when you like accidentally touch like a pine tree and you get sticky. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? You're like, oh my God, it's so gross. Like it's just yes, I also hate being sticky. I would hate to drown in something sticky. Um, and so
Um,
dark.
One other fun fact I looked up because I found this, I saw this somewhere and you made me think of it, is that every year between 20 and 40 Americans die in grain silos
Oh yeah.
because it's the
It
same
feels
concept.
similar.
Yeah, well, it doesn't fall on them. It's more like they fall into the silo, and then when
That
you
it like
fall
sucks
into
them
it,
in.
it's called engulfment, which is you can actually suffocate even if your head is out of the grain because the
Whoa.
weight of the grain pushing on your torso will
Right.
prevent you from being able to breathe. Yeah, nuts.
Oh my God, what a terrible way to go.
What a horrible, horrible way to go.
That's terrible.
There's so many horrible ways to die.
I know.
Yeah, I just want to I don't want to go like that.
Yeah, I feel like I don't, do they even, I don't know if they still have big molasses tanks, but like, also, I don't feel like you don't strike me as someone who'd be near a grain silo for any reason. So that's good.
Yes, yes, we'll prevent
So it's like
that.
an easy one to avoid for like a regular non-farming person.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. So we'll be good.
Other things would be harder, but that one seems like pretty easy.
Well, Taylor, thank you for sharing. I do like that story. I also like the fact that like if you casually hear about it, it sounds almost like a wacky comedy.
Exactly.
And then
Yeah.
the more you think about it, the more you realize what an absolute nightmare it is.
Yeah.
So hopefully
Um,
we instilled a little bit of nightmare fuel for you guys. Um,
yeah.
cool. Well, is there anything newsworthy or emailed in that we want to sound off on?
Nope. Nope, not this week. We did whatchamacallit, we did an ad and got a bunch of new listeners to the a couple of our episodes. So hopefully people are sticking around. We'd love it if you have. So thank you.
Yeah. Again, we need to be famous.
We just want to go around and learn things and share them with you.
I mean, I would just be happy if a stranger asked me for an autograph. I'd be like, "That's it. Like, we're done. Like,
But it'd be
I'm
amazing.
set." Yeah.
I love that for us. Yeah, so if you do have any ideas, if you're new, if you wanted to talk about anything, we're at doomedtofailpod@gmail.com, doomedtofailpod.com, doomed to fail on all of the social medias. So we'll see
And
you there.
join us in a few days, and I will probably change my topic and do a different story than what I have researched.
Cool.
If you
Well,
like.
you have one in the hopper now.
There you go. There you go. Sweet. Thanks, Taylor.
Thanks, Ferris.
We'll go ahead and sign off.